welcome to another top 5 with Kris 05, guys. Today we're gonna look at all of the best decks after the latest nerfs, so you guys know what you should be playing, as well as what you're playing against. If you're serious about Hearthstone and you enjoy what I'm doing, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
No surprises on the first spot, it's obviously gonna be Aggro DH because literally the entire meta is warping around it. Like, you're either playing Aggro DH or you're playing against Aggro DH, so nothing in between. Like, if you're not winning against Aggro DH, you're probably not gonna be climbing much, so here's what we're looking at right now. This is one of the most popular variants right now, very standard list. We're seeing all of the usual suspects in here. We're not having any bounce effects. I've seen quite a few people are trying to actually bounce around the mini for the window shopper with Brewmasters and the other better Brewmaster effect minions out there as well. But we're not seeing any of this nonsense in this one. We're actually also not running Going Down Swinging here too, which definitely feels like a good card, but now the meta doesn't seem to be all that tokeny. And even when you are facing token decks, it's usually a not so hard matchup for you anyway. So yeah, we're no longer running that one in this one, even though there is a close win percent list that is opting for it instead. But here we have 2 Tastes of Chaos. Other than that, everything else is pretty much standard stuff in here. We have the mech package. This way with the oscillator, you can also actually drop a earlier mech Pterodon that way. Like, let's say on turn 3, you equip the weapon and swing. Turn 4, you swing again. And after that, you get a 3-mana Window Shopper plus a 1-mana Mini. And the Mini can give you a 0-mana mech Pterodon like that, and that is an insane high roll. We're also running Pozikin here, which is going to help you mill your opponents, but also help you tempo out with the pesky 3/3s that are going to be negative tempo for the opponent. And in terms of healing, you have some ball hog action going, as well as you could discover something out of your Taste of Chaos. We also have Kane Sunfury in here, so you can slap some Wheel Warlocks through their taunts, but the rest is pretty standard stuff. As for Ziliax, we have the +1/+1 module, as well as costs 1 less each minion played. Some people are opting for the double your attack module instead, and at the end of your turn deal 3 damage. That is a very decent tempo Ziliax to be playing, but if you're facing a lot of mages, that is also going to be a very bad thing for you to be dropping, because if they have their Sleet Skaters, they can basically freeze your Ziliax over and over again and gain tons of armor in the process, so it's definitely risky business. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show. You really don't have any very bad matchups, but from experience, Control Warriors are not going to be your friend, and neither is Sith Mage, so keep that in mind. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first. You always want your weapon, your instrument deck. Salesman is your best 1-drop, but also the drone and the oscillator are not too bad either. Pozic is also an okay keep if you already have a good curve going, and the rest you're probably gonna need a good reason to think about them. As for on the coin, here's what it is. Again, pretty similar stuff, but here even things like the 0-mana through Felon Flames can help you out, so you can actually win the early game tempo fight. And I've seen Burning Heart being a lot higher on the keep list in some cases as well, so I guess it's also something you might consider, I'd say, depending on the matchup. For other good Aggro DH decks out there right now, like I said, it's nothing but Aggro DH out there. This is the list I showed you, 18,000 games. Here's a 1600 games list as well. It is running Going Down Swinging this time, instead of 1 Taste of Chaos, but that's basically the only difference, I think. And we have tons of other iterations. Some are using the bounce effects, like I said, but it's mostly not too far straying from the perfect 28, basically. You have like a couple of cards you could get creative with, but yeah, it's nothing but Aggro DH out there. Highlander is also out there as well. It can definitely throw some curveballs, but I'm not sure if it's better. It's definitely more expensive, but is it better than the simple standard Aggro DH? Probably not so much, so yeah, the choice is yours. It's definitely a lot more fun though. On the number 2 spot, we also have Spell Token Hunter, which is another pretty decent deck right now. But it's nowhere near as good as Aggro DH, and it also loses to Aggro DH, so I'm not really sure how good you're going to be climbing with this one, but it does have pretty good win rate right now, so definitely worth the check, especially if you're seeing a lot of Warriors. Common misconception is that this deck loses to Warriors. It's actually one of the easier matchups because Warrior doesn't really have all that much early game removal nowadays, guys, especially once you slap some saddle up action going. It's very awkward for the warrior to actually deal with stuff like that, so yeah, warrior nowadays is easy pickings for decks like this, so don't be afraid of them. This variant is actually running Ball of Spiders. I haven't really noticed this being a part of the best decks lately at least, but it is definitely an interesting inclusion. It is gonna help you get a lot of extra beasts like that for your jungle gym, and we're also running the Painted Canvasaur. Very interesting list, not gonna lie, but it is having some pretty good stats. As for the Ziliax, we have the discount plus the +1, because you do zerg the board quite a lot. We also have a single copy of Camouflage in here, and you could get super lucky getting Wind Fury out of this. It's a 1 in 7 though, so there's that. Leroy for the finisher. We got some Huffers out of the Patchwork Pals, which is pretty nice. And yeah, all around, you've probably seen this deck quite often nowadays. Matchup-wise, it's actually 50-50 against Aggro Demon Hunter. I haven't really noticed other lists having this good a win rate, but I guess some of the weird inclusions in this deck are helping it. Wheel Warlock is gonna be on the negative, but everything else looks decent, from the popular ones at least. Going first, here's what we have. I wouldn't really straight up hold on to Ziliax, but if you have a good hand, like let's say Sneaky Snakes into, I don't know, Ball of Spiders, maybe a Ziliax could be something to think about in that case, especially if you're expecting tokeny stuff against you as well. Miracle Salesman is great, Sneaky Snakes is nice, Remote Control is also pretty good, Patchwork Pals, I guess if you already have a good 1-drop you could consider it, RC Rampage also pretty decent, and Awakened Tremors is still quite fine. I would also not scoff at Tornmantle Musician, especially if you don't have another 1-drop, but as you can see, it's not your best 1-drop, it's actually far from it. As for On the Coin, here's what it looks like again. Agromar is not something you're gonna typically keep if you already have a perfect hand, sure, but usually you won't, so keep that in mind. Ziliax becomes a bit more keepable here. Patchwork Pal still quite fine, the weapon's great, Sneaky Snakes, Jungle Gym a lot better here as well. And same goes for the Painted Canvasaur and Saddle Up. Tremor is still keepable. For other good Hunter decks, we have plenty of different iterations of the Spell Talking Hunter, including the ones with the 5 mana 5/5s that get discounted. I also got smoked down by a big Beast Hunter out there, like it was looking quite fine, but doesn't seem like it's a meta deck just yet, but be on the lookout for some King Plush action with the eggs. It did actually feel like it can slap. On number 3 spot, we have Wheel Warlock. I just put out a very detailed guide about this deck, so I don't think I should be going over the details about this one all that much. I am gonna say that this is a little bit different from the list I was showing in the last video. This one right now is running a couple of Hellfires. Instead of Drain Souls, apparently, we also have room for a couple of Imposing Anubisots, as well as a Popgar, which is a pretty interesting inclusion, but it does give you basically 6 mana, deal 4 damage twice, plus heal back 8 health, which is nothing to scoff at. We also have a couple of Doomkins, so you can really lower the opponent's tempo while increasing yours, and the rest is pretty standard stuff. Again, Ziliax here is summoning a copy, plus the perfect module, so you can heal back to full. There is some other iterations that are using the shuffle back into your deck with the perfect module. That ain't that bad, but usually you don't really have that much of problems with. If you've actually decided to play Wheel of Death, you shouldn't really have all that much issue to not die in the next 5 turns. But yeah, like I said in the detailed guide, your wheel is not always your win condition. It actually rarely is. A lot of the time you just outlast the opponent and slap him with some big men. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show here. Aggro Demon Hunter is still not fine. Zarimi Priest is also in the negative, but everything else is pretty good. As for the mulligan, I'm just gonna show you here quickly. You can check out the detailed guide for some really in-depth thoughts. But here's what it looks like going first, and same with going second. Doomkin pretty high when going second. Turn 5 Doomkin can be pretty hot. For other good Warlock decks, not much else is really going on. Sludge Warlock is still usable, but it's just a fraction of the monster of a deck it used to be. I did enjoy quite a lot playing this, but I'm not sure it's going to be doing all that well against all the Aggro Demon Hunters right now. Pain Warlock is apparently also a thing, but not that hot just yet. And is Pain Warlock Hand Warlock? I think it is. So yeah, that's about it for Warlock right about now. Moving down to the number 4 spot, we have Highlander Warrior. And the main thing going for this deck is it's slapping the Aggro Demon Hunters, even though in the Aggro Demon Hunter matchups it doesn't show it to be a bad matchup, like Highlander is 58. No, it ain't. When you look at the details here, Highlander against Aggro Demon Hunter, 60% in favor for the Highlander, and that is from my experience an understatement. Like, I don't remember losing to an Aggro Demon Hunter playing Highlander Warrior, so there's that. This variant, I'm not really gonna go over all the cards. It basically has tons of control tools. It has the excavation package in here. It has a good amount of armor gain, and we have some pretty big boy threats at the end as well. The Viper, kind of questionable inclusion in today's day and age. Like, this thing used to be a no-brainer against the Pallies, but now against Aggro Demon Hunters, you're kind of not into that shit, destroy the opponent's weapons. So if you want to include something else, this is the first card you can look at. Personally, I included Geppetto so I can finish the goddamn stupid event. It actually worked like a charm. But on the very next game, when I slapped the Viper back in, I faced the Highlander Shaman, and this thing came in with the clutch on turn 5 against his Holiday. Anyway, enough of that. The big threats in here would be Ignis, especially after a Deep Miner Brand. You can do some hella sick stuff, like if you're in a pinch, if the opponent has a big fat board and you don't have any removals, you could actually use Ignis to get double 1-mana weapons and look for Poisonous Death Rattle, deal 2 damage AoE or whatever the hell it is for 1 mana. And just re-equip another 1-mana weapon instantly to break it, and that's basically a 6-mana full board clear, which is pretty nice. Or you could just look for some big 10-mana Wind Fury weapons twice like that. That's obviously pretty busted. We have a couple of mechs, Burrow Buster plus Ziliax in this one, and that way you could summon them back with your Inventor Boom. And also Ziliax is gonna be the summon copy of Ziliax, so if you play Ziliax and then Boom, he is gonna summon a couple of Ziliaxes for you. Unless you've also cast the Burrow Buster before that. In that case, the 50-50 what's gonna come out. And also keep in mind, you do need to have 2 mechs die in order for him to actually summon 2 mechs back. Because if you just summon the single Burrow Buster and play Boom, he's only gonna summon you 1 Burrow Buster back. He could summon you a full board of Ziliaxes, like 4 Ziliaxes that way. If you've actually played Bran, then Ziliax, which with the Battle Cry is gonna summon 3 copies instead of only 2. And after that, Inventor Boom could also summon a bunch of men like that as well. So yeah, all around, don't expect this guy to over-deliver if you don't have the grand total of mechs dead. We also have Boom Boss in here, which is hella nice. You usually want to be using this after you've thinned out the deck pretty low. But in some cases, you just tempo him out, especially if you already have a Bran out there. Like, you tempo him out right after and keep on drawing like mad. And you could be sniping off some serious business for the opponent. Like, if you're against the Sith Mage, for instance, the sooner you play this Boom Boss, the better, because you are gonna put the opponent down on a clock, because if you start burning their combo pieces, they're definitely not gonna be very happy. We also have Reno, obviously, a Badlands Brawler, which is pretty nice for removal, and you don't always need to be using it after double excavating. Like, even a single excavate is still a pretty perfectly functioning brawl for you, so keep that in mind. Matchup-wise, you already saw the gist of it, but Plague Decay is gonna be hella bad for you because Highlander goes Burr against them. But other than that, you don't really have any that bad matchups aside from Warlock as well, obviously. As for the mulligan, going first, here's what it shows. We are looking for the good 1-drops. Depending on the matchup, you could be looking for some good control tools like Sanitize, Bellowing Flames, and if you have enough breathing room, you could even consider keeping things like Deep Miner Brand or Trial by Fire. Steam Guardian, nothing to scoff at. But yeah, all around you're a Highlander deck. Like, if the card makes sense for you in your early turns, it's probably not a bad idea to include it. And same goes for when on the coin. Like, it's gonna come down to what you're looking for depending on the different matchups. So the more you know about your opponent, the better you are gonna be at mulliganing with this, because against the Warlock, you're probably not gonna need something like Aftershock, but against the Demon Hunter, you probably would be fine with it. So yeah, be smart about it and mulligan accordingly. Other good warrior decks right now, basically Highlanders at the top. Odin Warrior is still playable, but it's not as amazing as it used to be. Like, it used to be close to 60, now it's under 55. And yeah, that's about it for Warrior right about now. And lastly, we actually have Rainbow Death Knight, again becoming the better Death Knight variant. And the main reason for that is it's still actually somewhat Plague Decay, because it does have Hellion here, as well as a couple of down with the ships, so it's more of a hybrid Rainbow Plague Decay kind of deal. It is gonna do well against Highlander decks because of these two, and it also has a lot of big power plays. It also has Threads of Despair, which is basically like a different iteration of Defile nowadays. This can be extremely powerful with the help of crop rotation, let's say. Like, it suddenly becomes more than 4 damage AoE, because once something dies, it keeps on popping for 1 extra damage, so that's pretty powerful. We have the Sickly Grimwalk, Grand Acolyte of Death, which also work wonderfully well, both with crop rotation and with your 2-mana mining casualties, as well as with Army of the Dead. So we have several different ways of really generating tons of Poison Idiots or tons of card draw. In terms of big threats, like I said, we have Helia plus the Plagues. We also have Primass, Ziliax is in here, and this one is, again, summoning a copy plus Perfect Module. Resk is in here, Necrotic Explosion. Don't think that this deck wins through Necrotic Explosion, guys. If you're trying to just eat corpses so you can OTK the opponent, that's never gonna happen. Like, you gotta keep the pressure going and chip down the opponent so that this thing can actually get you a lethal out. And if it doesn't get you a lethal out, you can still just use it for some decent tempo. Like, it is still gonna summon a bunch of big men. It also has lifesteal, so it can stabilize you. You could just straight up use it on an opponent's minion. Like, you can be very creative about how you win in this one. And you also have the Headless Horseman in here, which is gonna give you a lot of extra gas if you manage to find your head on time, which you should, honestly, with the help of the Acolyte of Death. Matchup-wise, Wheel Warlock's not gonna be your friend. Highlander Warrior, what the hell? It's supposed to be pretty good if you ask me, but it ain't. That's kind of weird. So yeah, the stats are a little bit off here, I'd say, but you are gonna be good against Aggro Demon Hunter, and the main reason for that is you have a couple of Glacial Shards, as well as a couple of Quartz-size Crusher, and that way you get to freeze the opponent's face so they can never get their discounted Window Shoppers if you're lucky enough to get them on time. You also have a couple of Runes of Darkness, which could give you extra Quartz-size Crushers, or depending on the matchup, you could be looking for the Plague Death Knight weapons, and that way you can ensure that Highlander shenanigans will not be enduring. As for the mulligan going first, here's what the stats show. Helia should be pretty awesome against most cases. The weapon could be important if you're the Aggro Demon Hunter, I'd say. Kinda weird being this low, and 50% of the times people are actually holding it. Again, if you're against the Aggro Demon Hunter, Glacial Shard could be a keep, but usually you want to be curving out with things like Mining Casualties, Miracle Salesman, Helia, Monpaw can be great, and yeah, stuff like that. As for on the coin, you should be still looking for the same things. The stats are really all over the place here, huh? Like, you're not really going to be holding either of these, like 1.90%, you're not holding on to them. But Helia still hella fine, especially on turn 3, Mining Casualties, Salesman, all that good stuff. For other good Death Knight decks, we have several different iterations of Rainbow Death Knight. By the way, I had to dig deep for this one. It's literally under 55% win rate, but right now this is the reality we live in. This is actually a top meta deck right now with 55, just because Aggro Demon Hunter is taking all up the 60% win rates. So yeah, definitely scraping at the bottom kind of deal. Definitely should be seeing some balance changes real soon, because this is getting a little bit ridiculous. So yeah, a bunch of different rainbow decks at the top. Plague Decay still hella fine. But yeah, nothing too amazing, honestly. As for the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Druid, I did see somebody actually reach top legend with Boomkin Druid. That's definitely some serious skill action to be able to reach legend with this pile of garbage. Dragon Druid is still seemingly decent. This is a Highlander Dragon list, however. But yeah, all around, Druid is just not doing it for us right now. For Mage, Rainbow, Sith Mage seems to be at the top, but personally I'd say just straight up Rainbow Mage is better. You can check out my detailed guide about Rainbow Mage. It definitely has the capabilities of taking you even to top legend, and you are going to see plenty of Sith Mages in top legend because they're doing well against Aggro Demon Hunters if you know how to play it. Elemental Mage apparently is also a thing in the Diamond 2 legend ranks, but definitely not that amazing. With Paladins, we actually have Aggro Pally still doing somewhat fine. Very, very low sample size as you can see, but the stats are decent for it, so there's that. With Priests, Zarimi Priest is doing fine-ish. It's not super hot against Aggro Demon Hunters still, but it can fight its own there. We also have Highlander Priest doing somewhat okay, but nothing that amazing. Low sample size, 50-50. Not exactly amazing, especially for a Highlander deck. With Rogues, Mech Rogue is still hella fine. You can see still some bots farming easy gold like that, easy XP. Miracle Rogue is also doing okay with the Playhouse Giant. It's not very popular, but it could be a nuisance. So if you start seeing some of these cards, be careful for a couple of big 8/8s, or even more, because they get do a lot more with breakdance and shit. Weapon Rogue is also a thing, and that's about it for Rogue right now. With Shamans, Nature Shaman is actually still doing fine. I'm surprised not to see Highlander here, but maybe it doesn't have enough time to just pop out. It's also like Highlander decks do tend to have a little bit of harder time showing up in the meta, because with 30 cards you can definitely see a lot of different iterations, so I guess we don't have enough games on those, but I think Highlander Shaman is still at least around 53 as well. But yeah, this is what Nature Shaman looks like right now. It's definitely taken a fat hit with the nerf to the gift, so it's gonna be even harder to pilot it well nowadays. And I had a request last time to show what the stats are for top 1000 legends. It's kinda slim pickings here, guys, like very low sample size, but apparently Zarimi Priest is doing okay there, with only 200 games, but still. Aggro Demon Hunter is still at the top, Control Warrior, this is the Highlander list basically. A bunch of other different iterations of Highlander. Spell Token is fine, Mech Rogue under 50, and same for Rainbow Mage, but I really do believe Rainbow Mage is doing a lot better in top 1000, but maybe I'm wrong. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the new post-patch meta. If you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.